I would think from an outsider's point of view, us having this podcast and like reflecting on our experiences kind of makes this false image that maybe we're kind of at the peak of our growth.
Hi, welcome to Adulthood Pending Podcast. I'm Annalise.
I'm Brittany.
And I'm Kimmy.
We're a podcast for college students, recent graduates, or anyone else who's also figuring out that being an adult isn't as simple as it's made out to be. Join us each episode as we share how we're navigating our careers, post-grad lives, and the whole adulting experience.
With 2020 coming to a close and our season wrapping up, we wanted to dedicate this episode to really reflect on how we've grown as people and how we've seen each other grow throughout our friendship and specifically throughout this weird time of quarantine. So today we're going to be discussing growth. On the topic of reflection of growth, we're starting this episode out with a fun question. Did you like who you were in high school in like the 16 to 17-year-old range?
I think I liked some aspects of myself. I think I liked how involved I was in our high school. I was in a lot of different clubs. I was in like student council. And I think I liked that aspect of myself and how I made an effort to know a lot of people and to just be really, really involved in my school. So I liked that. I was extremely loud and way too energetic for a human being that I don't think I will. No, I don't like that part of me at all. Like I was reading through old yearbook messages and I was like, this is rough. Like everyone was always like, you're so loud, don't I can hear your voice from the other side of the hallway. Like,
oh my gosh,
bad.
That's so funny.
Yeah, and I think I just forgot like how loud of a person I was, because I do think that like over time I've mellowed out my personality. Yeah, so not really, don't think I would like that part. I would think I would find that part of me annoying, to be completely honest. But I do like how I was very, interested in being a part of the community and finding ways to get involved and, try to make a difference in where I was. So I think I like that part of me, but that other part, not so much.
And this is coming from someone who is always like, oh my gosh, my parents are being so loud.
Now I know where I get it from.
So if I had to describe myself, my high school self, I would classify myself as what they call a bitch. So I did not like myself.
What the French say?
I thought I was too cool for school. Like I would just complain about everything. I was very not career at that point, I guess, but like college focused. So I'm just like, screw all of you guys in high school. I'm going on to better places, which is, that uppity like outlook on life is so toxic. And I'm really not proud of that. And yeah, I would come to school. I would wear like
would you wear too cool for school?
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I would wear like thrifted clothes, and a lot of that consisted of black and velvet pieces, if that gives you an idea of what kind of person I was in high school.
Wow.
So yeah, I think a lot of my personal growth has definitely stemmed from being like, oh, I should be nicer to, or like I shouldn't think that just because I have this motivation in myself and maybe some other people have different life paths, that they're not good people or like worth my time kind of thing. So yeah, definitely a lot of growth from that stage of my life.
Similarly to Annalise, I was also very involved in high school. So I definitely liked that part of myself because, yeah, I feel like I was doing things to improve the school and the community. But I think reflecting back on kind of how that was done, I feel like, I mean, I'm not like trying to take the blame off myself, but like this is like me in combination with other people. I feel like we weren't necessarily inclusive or understanding of other people's um like environments or even our own privilege. Like one thing in particular is being in student government, student council, we had to plan a lot of events and we needed people to come to these events because the money just like funnels down through the class every year. So basically you have money for graduation. Like that's how it works. So we would always advertise these dances that we needed people to attend so we could put on graduation essentially. And a part of that is like us telling people like, oh, you should come to this dance. It should be really fun. And having some sort of like reduced price ticket the first week, but not really being aware of like people might not want to come because of their situation or like what are we not or what were we not doing to provide an environment that would be inclusive for more people to want to come. So that's something small, but I feel like because I was involved in student council for all 4 years of high school and like we were very much just in that bubble of like, okay, let's get people to these events, let's make all this money because it's going to benefit us in the future. We didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about other people's situations.
So I guess I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like thinking about how more and thinking more about other people around you.
Yeah.
So if we all went to the same high school, I would basically hate you too.
Yes, I think we've established, and I would probably just be in the hallway yelling for no reason.
Okay, you probably wouldn't. I feel
wouldn't
like I
hate.
was friends with a lot of people, so we would be friends.
I would have made fun of you for going to school stuff. Definitely.
Okay, yeah, but we still would have been friends. Like I would know that you wouldn't come, but I'd still talk to you.
Would we be friends or would we be friendly? I think we would be friendly. Kimmy and I might be friends. I feel like Britt and I would.
Okay, we would literally be in the same things, Annalise.
Yeah, you and Annalise would be the same person. Annalise would just be louder.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. So let's talk about our definitions of personal growth. What does it mean to us, and why is it important for us to talk about it today?
I really wanted to talk about this topic for an episode because I think because I would think from an outsider's point of view, us having this podcast and like reflecting on our experiences kind of makes this false image that maybe we're kind of at the peak of our growth or we've had enough experiences to talk about our growth. But like the reality is every single day, I'm sure I'm speaking for myself, but I'm assuming for you too as well. We're having experiences that we're growing from, and it's still important to acknowledge that we're still learning currently in our day-to-day lives. And just because we're able to reflect on certain situations doesn't mean like we have it all together and we're kind of done growing because we're still young and we're still growing each day. And I guess personal growth to me means just having more. This is very specific to me, I think, but having more gratitude and learning about specific instances and experiences that I can grow from, even like tougher experiences, and not really shying away from or not really shying away from wanting to learn from things that I might find difficult, and just overall kind of becoming just a more holistically knowledgeable person about culture and how I interact with people and that kind of stuff.
That was a great answer. I feel like I also define personal growth similar to Brit, and that is just like improving in different aspects in your life where you may feel like there's opportunities for growth. To touch on what Brit said earlier about why it is important for us to talk about this, I feel like I don't know if this is like specific to 2020 and being in quarantine, where in the very beginning, everyone was like, this is an amazing time to really focus on like side projects you've never gotten to, or
Mhm.
just improve yourself because like we aren't really interacting with anyone else. So it's
Mhm.
really just you against any like accomplishments or like missions that you wanted to set out for yourself. So I feel like there's been around a lot of like hype around the word like growth and like,
Mhm.
oh, like, yes, you should journal in the morning. And here's like the top 10 things that all these successful people do. And like, here's how you can be like them. I'm interested in this topic because at least what I've seen on social media, which is now how we interact with people so often about growth, is very much kind of tied to like this. I don't really know how to explain it, but this just idea of like, yes, you always should be improving. You always should be doing these things. It's 2020. You need to get it together.
Mhm.
So I wanted to like hear your experiences and see if that's really what you've been doing throughout this time, or like if you measure your growth in other ways beyond what's seen on social media, like bullet journaling.
Mhm.
Trying to think of my definition of personal growth. I think for me, it's tricky to come up with a definition just because it's not really something that I actively think about. I think I'm very much the type of person who like has a goal that's like long term, and then I try to achieve that goal. That it's hard for me to
Mm-hmm.
like zone in on the now and like how I can. What are some small things that I can do? But generally, stuff like how do I do things that make me happier and make me become like quote unquote a better person, whatever that
Mm-hmm.
means.
Mhm.
That's something that I think that I also in ways more reflective about, like where am I spending my money and like which companies am I supporting, stuff like that. But I
Mhm.
feel like that's also a reflection about like the environment that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
Like we mentioned in previous episodes, just like living in like this echo chamber of people agreeing with their own thoughts. And I feel like that probably contributes to like why I think the way I do. But yeah, I think it's just hard for me to think about personal growth because it's just not really something that I've really put a lot of thought into,
Mm-hmm.
other
Mhm.
than, like I said, like how do you be a better person? But I feel like even then that varies person to person.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do think though, Annalise, to touch on your point that you haven't really thought a lot about personal growth, like I do understand that to some extent because I feel like when you're in school, it's very easy to have this like specific goal of what you want to achieve. So it's like, I want to get into this club, I want to, achieve these grades. And then once
Mm-hmm.
you're in your career, you're like, I want to get this promotion, I want to move up
Mm-hmm.
in this ranking. But then, like, I feel like also for myself, there's very little time until recently
Mm-hmm.
because of quarantine. I've
Mhm.
been thinking about it, about like, how am I actually improving myself beyond those like attachments to who I am?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. Like, I think I'm just so driven by these, by school and then by work that it's hard for me to, or I it's just sometimes forget to think about like how am I personally growing? Because I think a lot about like
Mm-hmm.
how am I growing professionally, but it's
Mhm.
never so much about like me and my personal growth. But to touch on what Brittany said earlier about how, growth is something that's ongoing and to just learn from your experiences, I feel like that's something that I also really agree with. Like, I don't think that we by any means are a master in anything. I think we're still growing. And even if you're like 60, 70, 80, I still feel like that there are certain things that you can learn as you grow. Like, think about like, our grandparents who are learning technology, like they're learning,
Mm-hmm.
and like
Mhm.
that's something that's I think more materialistic, but even I'm sure like smaller things like um yeah, just like as you grow, you're learning a lot.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
It does.
So I think it's really interesting how you two are kind of touching on like the fads of personal growth and maybe
Mhm.
aspects of personal growth that are more concrete and kind of you can write down on paper. But for a long time, I used to think, or for a long time, I think personal growth for me is just really liking myself as a person. Like, if
Mm.
I was a separate human entity from myself, would I
Mm.
want to be friends with myself? Would I like who I stand or what I stand for and the attitude I give out to other people? And I think that's been kind of tough for a while, especially with um, this quarantine and everything going on, like really
Mhm.
dealing with myself and like analyzing aspects of like what little interaction I do have with other people, especially because I don't know, like I'm not in the best mood when I like am dealing with people at work um or like at the store and you know like am I putting on a happy face for people, am I like being someone I'd want to approach. um So that's been kind of my journey, I think, so far with personal growth. It's become a lot more like analytical than it has been in the past.
Mhm. I will say I think I focused a lot more on personal growth when I just graduated because it was like entering a new
Mm.
city, meeting new people, starting a new career. That was very much like,
Mhm.
okay, I can in ways like reinvent myself almost. That it's like, well, who do I want to be? And having like just gone through a breakup, I was like, okay, well, how do I become like happier and how do I become or how do I find people who I want in my life?
Mhm.
And so in that sense, it was like, okay, well, how like very reflective about who I am as a person and my personalities. Um, and yeah, that's something that I think I was more reflective of. But like,
Mhm.
I feel like everything's so different in quarantine. I feel like everyone's talking about it, but not
Mhm.
to, yeah. But I feel like in
Mhm.
quarantine, because my interactions are limited, I just don't have as much room or opportunities to be reflective about who I am as a person because not much is
Mhm.
changing other than, you know, work, I guess.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's fair. I really like what you said, Britt, though, about like taking a step back, like almost having like a out of body experience where you're like, do I like myself and like who I was today? Because I feel like oftentimes growth is like very inward looking, like, okay, this is what I'm going to achieve. Here's how I'm going to get there. These are the things I'm grateful for. But like, I feel like, at least for me personally, there's not that many moments where I actually step back and I'm like, okay, did I like how that whole process went?
Mm.
So I feel like that takes a lot of like self awareness, which I definitely want to start to do. Like, as you were saying that, I was like, oh, because I've recently been journaling after
Mm.
hearing this
Mhm.
TikTok that, okay, I hear all, I know TikTok influenced me, but all the time I hear that, like, when you wake up, you shouldn't go on your phone, blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. Okay,
Right.
but TikTok got me when they said that you really shouldn't do that because, like, the first few minutes when you're waking up, you aren't like, I don't know how scientific this is, but you aren't fully awake, which means that like a lot of different factors can really easily influence the rest of your day. So I was like, wow, okay, maybe I should start journaling. Um, so
When
Jen
you wake
in,
up.
yeah, like right when I wake up before getting on my phone. So Britt and I watch a lot of like Jen M videos from YouTube, and she posted, I don't remember, do you remember where it's from, Britt? Like
Oh
the
my gosh.
journal.
It was like some vlog. I forgot what video it was. Like one of her
Yeah,
blogs.
we can link the vlog and the questions down below. But basically, she was like, I ask these questions to myself in the morning. So I've been asking what are you grateful for? What's a pattern that you want to shift today? And oh, like one self affirmation. But I feel like I could add another one where it's like a reflection to the day previous, asking like, did you like who you were yesterday?
Hmm.
Hmm. Have you
I feel like
noticed a
it wraps it up
change?
nicely. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Oh no, I was
Oh,
asking like
oh,
since you
that was
started.
like a
Sorry,
question.
no. Since you started doing this, like, have you noticed a change in just like your overall, I guess, well-being?
Yeah, I okay, so some days are better than others.
Hmm.
Like because the company I work for is on the East Coast, Sometimes if I know it's going to be a busy day, I'm like, oh, I just got this journaling out of the way.
I see.
And I just do it, and then I go straight to my phone. But there's other moments when I'm like, okay, let's actually really think about the pattern that I want to shift today, rather than just putting like, you should work out 3 times in a row.
Yeah, I know bullet journaling is really big in terms of like, you know, keeping track of habits and like being very reflective, because it's easy to like you were saying, Kimmy, about like having questions and answering them. And that's like easy to do in bullet journal form. I've had a journal since like middle school, but I think a lot of it was because my sister had one and I was like, oh, that's so cool, I want one too. So if you read like my old diaries from like middle school, they're so bad and they're just like no information. It's just me talking about boys and
Surprise,
and they're just
surprise.
like, yeah, there's just not a lot of content there.
But there
some
is
growth.
content.
Yeah, well, I guess, but
Not
it's really funny.
content, but
Definitely not growth content. Although I guess like looking back now, I can see how I've grown in that sense.
True.
But yeah, I think it's really funny how like I think it's funny how before journaling was something that I did a lot, but I feel like since growing older or like growing up, it's been harder for me to set that time to journal because I just have so many thoughts and so many feelings and things happening that I just don't really have the time to like sit down and journal. And something that like I noticed that I do is like I'll say like, okay, I'll write about this later, and then I won't because like the moment's passed or like that event that I want to write about is like no longer of importance. So I'm like, oh, there's no need to write. But it has been interesting to like go through all the different years and like see how I've changed and how I've like not even just maturity wise, but like how I view things differently. I also like journaling because I feel like it's a place where I could really just say whatever I want. And like things that I'm afraid to admit to other people, I could just write down and like no one has to know. Which sounds very suspicious, but I think it's like a nice way to like at least write how I really feel, and like it allows me to like explore all my emotions. And Brittany, I also know you journal a lot.
Yeah, I've been journaling for a while, and I think it's funny because like my journal. Wait, I was gonna make a pun. I was gonna say journey with journaling, but it came out wrong.
Journal.
My journey with journaling has kind of like been all over the place. Like I've varied from like very properly laid out bullet journal pages to like just like whatever, I'm just gonna write down whatever I think. But I think journaling is really helpful to me because I think it's nice just to have some sort of like condensed format where you're purely self-reflecting. And I do go in periods also, like Emily said, where I will like have so many thoughts in my head and I'm like, oh, I should like really write this down and like kind of lay it out, but I don't. And then that always proves to be somewhat harmful in terms of like mental health or like just kind of just overall feelings of like lots of thoughts in my head. So I have been trying to get in the habit of just writing down my thoughts whenever it gets like really overwhelming, because I think it's the most organized way to kind of self-reflect and really buckle down on like, what am I thinking right now, like not just like let thoughts kind of get in the way of things, you know.
Can I ask, like, I feel like we're all in the age where at least it feels like you have to always be doing something, or at least maybe that's how I feel. Like I feel like I'm in my 20s, like I should be doing a lot because everyone talks about their 20s. That how do you find time to be reflective, and like how do you find time for yourself when you feel like you have to always be doing something?
Like, I think I'm not the best at doing that. Like, a question that my friend asks me whenever I catch up with her is like, how have you made time for yourself today? And I'm like, oh.
Sorry, I'm laughing.
Like, luckily she asks me on the weekends, so typically I have an answer. But like I do think about it from time to time, and I'm like, I work
It's hard,
now.
at least for me it is, because I feel like I'm always so focused on work and like, I don't know, other people that I sometimes forget to take time for myself.
So for me, I think it's because I'm in this gap year between graduating college and grad school. I intentionally went into these couple years with the goal of self improvement, and so I think that's been all at the forefront of my mind a lot of the days. Although I will admit, like I'm not successful also a lot of the days, and but I do recognize how tough that would be for someone who is starting their career and maybe they don't have like a chunk of time where maybe they want to achieve a more lofty goal, like personal, like growing as a person, you know? And it's also been kind of a journey for me because I recognize I have so much privilege to even have that as a goal, you know? I'm like living at home. I don't have to worry about making, well, about making money, about making food, about knowing where I'm going to sleep at night. And so, yeah, I think that's why personal growth is such a tricky subject too, because some people just don't have that luxury of learning and like reflecting because they have, like you guys, you have work and other things to think about, and the projection of your life is a little more open than mine, I think. And so, yeah, I recognize how hard that would be for a lot of people.
Yeah, I like that you bring that up, that everyone is on their own path, and like for you or someone else that is attending grad school but like has this intermediate period, that could be the period when they focus on their growth, whereas someone who like enters a career right away might have to like first get comfortable in that role
Mm-hmm.
before they can be like, all right, I have time to now do myself and work on who I am.
Mm-hmm.
um so that's interesting to think about, that it might come at different times for different people, even if you are like the same age.
Mm-hmm.
I also just like thought just now how, at least I know I've said it before, but how I don't really think about my own personal growth a lot, but I do notice other people's growths, like from an outside perspective, like a friend, if they've changed, I'm like, wow, they've really grown as a person. And like, I'm really like, that's incredible. But then I'm like, oh, I don't really do that for myself when I guess I
Yeah,
could.
Mm-hmm.
I get what you mean. You're like, oh yeah, I've known this friend for like 8 years. Wow,
Yeah.
that's so beautifully. I've known myself for 22
For,
years.
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess Kimmy and Anna, because I feel like I think about it a lot, but that's because I wouldn't say I'm unhappy with myself as a person, but I've definitely noticed my flaws like repeating, and that's something I'm not really proud of. But so, would you say that you're happy with yourselves as people?
I think I have room for improvement for sure. I think I think when things in your life change, that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of when you are almost forced to think about yourself or reflect.
Mm-hmm.
Not even like forced in that like you have to, but it's just something that crosses your mind. So like, you know, big life events like, you know, a big breakup. I think that when that happened for me, a lot of it was like, well, how can I change? Not because, you know, I wanted to, how do I change as a partner? Not even that, but just like, how do I now become someone different and better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like one of the things that, for example, for me was like, how do I become more open-minded about things,
Mm-hmm.
and be willing to like try new stuff, and you know, but also at the same time, like, how do I learn to say no to people? I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's something that I need to, not in like if there's ever a time where I'm like super exhausted and like really drained, to like tell myself that it's okay to say no. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know.
Yeah, I feel like I had a mixture of like both of your experiences. Like in the beginning, of the summer, because I was only working like 25 hours a week, my days were very like personal growth focused. Like I would wake up, go for a run, or do some gardening, like did some
Mm.
work, did some like side projects, and then like worked out consistently for 3 months. And I was so proud. And then since starting this new role, and like for a month, I was like managing 2 internships at once. That really didn't allow me to have any time be like besides those in this podcast.
Mhm.
So I feel like these past few months have been very much focused on career. Um, but ideally, I would like to get back to like more of that balance where there is more time for myself. And then, like, within that, there's career rather than like
Mm.
my whole day being filled with like career, and like that expands to, yes, like you work 8 hours a day, but recently I've just been so busy where I'll wake up and like I'll already be thinking about like people I have to
Yeah.
like email, things that I have to get to
Mm-hmm.
and do when, and I do it because like I'm just already in that zone.
Mhm.
Like yesterday, which was a Friday, I woke up and I legitimately thought it was Monday because I had so much energy and I was like, yes, we got to get this all done. And I was like, oh my gosh, tomorrow is Saturday. Gotta relax. Um,
What is that?
so I know. So like I think once the new year comes and things start slowing down at work, I'll be able to have more of that time for myself and to do that reflecting.
Mm. So we've kind of touched on using this time during quarantine to grow as people, but I'd like to know maybe what's a specific time this year that you felt you experienced a lot of personal growth?
To add on to this question, do you think there is a time that you felt that you like grew a lot like within your adulthood journey?
Mm.
I kind of touched on this before. I don't want to like spend too much time on it just because I've like mentioned it I think like 3 times already. But graduating, moving to a new city, starting a new job, going through a breakup, like all of that all at once, I think
Mm.
was when I had a lot of personal growth because I was thinking about my career, I was thinking about like making new friends, I was thinking about living on my own, like, you know, doing quote unquote adult things like buying groceries and
Mm-hmm.
meal prepping and paying bills and everything. And then just like trying to get over a breakup. Like
Mm.
all four of those combined, I think really made me grow. Just because there's just so much happening in my life all at once
Yeah.
that it made me think about a lot about, I'm entering this new phase of my life. Who do I want to be and how do I want to start off my adulthood time?
Mm-hmm.
So like, how do I want to manage my time? What do I want to do in my free time? Like, very surface level stuff like that, but also focusing on like, what are the things that will make me happy and who are the people that I genuinely want to be around at all times. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or, just thinking about that and thinking about what makes me happy in terms of like, what am I doing? Like, does waking up early make me happy? Am I more of a night person who likes to do things at night? Something like that. Stuff, just small things like that. I think then adding all those different factors together is was maybe the time that I felt a lot of personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Did that at all bleed over into this year? Because you started your job in summer of last year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was definitely challenging because I was at a place in my life where I was really happy with how things were going and I was really
Mm-hmm.
excited for new things to come, like
Mm-hmm.
we because all of I had experience I think at that point like the end of summer and then fall and winter. So I was really excited to have like my first spring and then my first like full summer in Boston. And
Mm-hmm.
then, we were in quarantine and then I left Boston to be with my parents. So I do feel like it kind of put a pause on my plans.
Mm-hmm.
And am I eager to get back to it? Yes, but I think it's hard because I'm trying to be really appreciative of what I have now. A lot of people don't have that. You know, like I have my parents, I'm able to spend the time with my family. Like my sister is still in California, but she can't come. And so she hasn't seen our parents, like she hasn't been with us in a while. So I'm just trying to be like really grateful of the time that I have now, but at the same time I'm like kind of itching to go back. But even if I do go back to Boston now, it's not like things are back to normal. I would have to still be, you know, by myself. So yeah, it's tricky because I do wonder a lot now, would I be happier in my life if we weren't in quarantine and if I was in Boston? And it's hard. I actually do think so. I've been really busy at work lately, and I think that being at home has helped me in terms of like making sure I eat. Something as small as that. Like I will work through lunch sometimes, or I'll work like pretty late. That I think if I were by myself in Boston, I would sometimes like probably forget to eat. So being at home has helped me in that sense. And it's just hard because like it is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, like what parts of my life would be better if I were at home versus if I were in Boston. And this is Boston without COVID, if that makes sense. But even then, like Boston during COVID, because I would have a lot more independence in a certain way. But would I be happier? I don't know. We'll never know.
So one instance that really comes to mind that happened this year was, so over the last a year, I would say, I've been like kind of one of the reasons why I'm so big on like self-improvement is because I've been kind of dealing with mental health issues, so like depression specifically. And like one breakthrough I had earlier in the year was like well, one thing that was really hard was I would be like very hard on myself. Like I would be like you know, like if I strayed from like journaling or like meditating, like if maybe one day I just felt sad, I would be like, oh, why can't you just do what it takes to not feel this way? And so I think one breakthrough I had was I stopped trying to be so hard on myself. Like I would kind of just take it how it was, like, okay, these are the cards I've been dealt, and on the surface they're like pretty good cards, you know, but how do I deal with this and not wish it was something else, and kind of just like make the most out of my situation I had now, because that was kind of something I'd always kind of like what you're saying, Annalise. I'd be like, why can't it, like, how would it be if it were different? Like, why couldn't it be something else? But like, you know, I can't go my whole life thinking that way. Like, of course, there's always going to be an alternative to things, but like, what life of that's like not your life technically, if that's just not what you, oh, I'm so sorry. If that's just not what you have, you know? And so I think that was like, obviously I still deal with that a lot, where I think, or I'm like hard on myself, or I think, "Ugh, you should do this differently. If you did this differently, like it wouldn't be like this." Or maybe like just wish my life or things that happen or the way I think weren't as it is. But I think that also comes with my journey in adulting, is kind of just like, what can I do with the situation I'm given? And like, because that's my situation, you know, like nothing else is going to change. And so I'm the one that has like the control over this right now. And so what can I do and like not wish anything differently, you know?
I mean, it's like that saying, the grass is always greener on the other side.
I know, it's like so cheesy too, but it's
I know, but it's so true. Like I almost hated saying that because it's just so cheesy, but I think it's pretty relatable. And I feel like also just because we're at this age, of adulthood where like things aren't really set in stone just yet, that
Mhm.
we think a lot about like, oh, what if, or like what are the different possibilities, like
Mhm.
what are my options, just because we have that, like, we have that luxury in some ways to explore it.
Mhm.
Yeah, but also I feel like okay, I think that's interesting how you think that's like a luxury because I feel like I'm just so afraid of making the wrong one. Like I'm not excited. I have all these
Yeah.
options. I'm just like, okay, what can I do to not choose the wrong
Mm.
solution to this? But like,
Yeah.
I guess you could think of it like there is no technical wrong solution if it's just what happens and you just have to deal with what happens afterwards, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Kimmy sent me a TikTok the other day about like how the 20s are supposed to be when you do whatever you want, and that you shouldn't
Mhm.
work at a corporate job. But I'm like, I don't really mind having the stability now. Like I don't know why that's a problem, or like why people are like you're wasting your 20s working a 9 to 5 when it's something that I mean, that's just my mentality. I know some people think like
Mhm.
you're giving your soul to the corporate world or whatever, but I think, everyone has their own goals or their own what makes them happy, and I don't, who are we to judge what makes them happy? And I feel like that the same
Mm,
is with personal growth. Like growth looks so different person to person that it's hard to, yeah, like what you were saying, like some people might view these options as a luxury, some people might view them as like some stress in their life, like, oh, I have too many options, I'm overwhelmed, whereas other people are like, oh, this is so great, I have so many things to choose, so many options to choose from. I think,
mhm.
yeah, I don't know, I'm rambling.
No, I think it's interesting. Like, I wonder why that is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if it's like maybe my upbringing or the fact that I don't have that stability, that too many options seems like
Mm-hmm.
I could easily make the wrong move and that'll have like repercussions. Whereas maybe
Yeah.
you have that stability. So you just think as anything superfluous is like, just an add on.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like I don't necessarily have one real experience where I was like, yeah, I really grew a lot doing this one thing, but it's been more of a mixture of like a few small things. Um, so something that I feel like I've grown is having a better mentality around like working out.
Mm,
Like in the past, because I
Mm-hmm.
am so goal oriented and regimented, I'd be like, okay, this, like for the next 3 months, I'm going to train for this. I'm literally going to do everything on this calendar and like stick to it. And since that's the routine that I followed for so long, it's been like hard to kind of step away from that. But more recently, I've been like, okay, if you only work out once this week, it's better than none. Because in the past, it would have been like, all right, you're either going to run 3 miles or not run at all, which at the time, like, seemed like it made sense. But then thinking about it more, it's like, might as well just do the best you can. Um, and then another way that I feel like I've experienced growth is just reconnecting with people that I haven't talked to in a while and like really being able to rekindle those relationships. And then also think more critically about how I am spending my time and like, who is being the initiator in like some groups. And if it is always me, is that the best thing? Do I want to like step back from that? So that's something I've been thinking about. Like, so yeah, I'm trying to just be better about like how I'm allocating my time. And I think kind of tied into that is like also if I am just not in the mood to talk to someone, just telling them rather than going through a call and being like, oh, don't really want to do this, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
here anyways, and not really giving like my friends their full attention. That's something I've been more cognizant as well. So
mm,
yeah, I feel like a lot of this year has just been like, okay, what am I doing and how can I improve on how it's impacting me?
mm,
But specifically to adulthood, um, I feel like I've had actually yeah, I feel like I've had a lot of growth this year career-wise, like
Mm.
really knowing about what I'm worth and like what I can bring to a company. Um, like earlier, I guess, yeah, earlier in March, there was an opportunity for me to intern somewhere that I really did like the company. I liked the position, but I didn't necessarily approve of what they were going to be paying me. And I turned down that offer. And I think for some parts of quarantine, I was like, man, I don't know if that was the best decision because, there's like obviously things that you can still learn, even if you aren't getting paid what I thought would be the best.
Mm,
Um, but I think like, I mean, yeah, I think having like confidence in myself that that was the right decision and like still being able to find things afterwards, um, I think really made that clear to me that like just because I didn't fulfill that one opportunity doesn't mean that the rest of my life is going to be like bad or career by
Mm.
any means.
mm,
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to hear all of our different viewpoints because I feel like Kimi and I are very, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. Kimi and I are very like career driven, which isn't like, I don't think that's
Mhm.
like a good or a bad thing. I think it's just like that's just a fact.
mhm,
But yeah, so it's really interesting to hear like everyone's, all of our different viewpoints or different opinions on this matter. So to wrap up our last episode of the season, we're going to do what we always do and just give some adulting advice or a reflection about personal growth and how we can be more introspective in our lives. So Kimi, do you want to start us off?
Mhm. Yeah, when we were talking about our daily habits and how we try to be reflective or self-aware, something I was thinking about is I know people say this all the time, but I actually want to like move my phone away from right next to my bed.
Mm.
So when I wake up and when I journal, I'm not immediately after like, okay, phone, gotta scroll through all the notifications. And I like take time before looking at my phone, because I think that would help set the mood in like a more positive and healthy way for the day.
I think so. I mentioned how I'm pretty career driven or goal oriented. And I think that something that I kind of want to give people an advice on, or in that I want to do myself, is to focus also on my own personal happiness. Because I think as someone who is career driven, this is again going to tie into my job, but you can't really be your full self at work or anywhere you are if you're
Mhm.
not at a place in your own life where you're happy with who you are as a person. So
Mhm.
to start there and to focus on yourself and your happiness and your growth can then trickle into other aspects of your life.
Mhm.
So focusing first on you.
mhm.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's easy to get caught up in thinking about personal growth as kind of a benchmark you have to reach. And in that aspect, always focusing on like what's left to improve. But I
Mhm.
think it's also really important to recognize how far you've come and kind of your own accomplishments within growing as a person, because it's so easy just to be like, okay, I did this and then forget about it. But
Mhm.
those things should be celebrated too, because
Mm.
just as much as that benchmark you want to reach is important to you, there was one before that, most likely, that um, would have been forgotten if you're just focused on the next thing ahead of you.
Mhm.
So thank you all for listening, and today is an extra special episode because this is our wrap up of season 1 of our podcast, which would not have been possible without all of you listening and just giving us so much support. We will be returning for season 2, which is super exciting, in late January. And in the meantime, if you want to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that would be really helpful. And we're always available to engage with you all on Instagram. And you can follow us on at Adulthood Pending Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn, or at Adult Pending Pod on Twitter. And you could also send us an email at hello.adulthoodpendingpodcast@gmail.com. And thank you all for listening to our stories, and we're excited to join you next season on our adulthood journey.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.